Welcome back to California Cooking. The countdown to Thanksgiving is on.
Yes, so we've got a menu full of pies and sides. Let's start with pie. What's your favorite pie?
Apple pie.
Apple pie, it's a classic. Well, the I Like Pie Bakeshop specializes in personal pies, so you can enjoy this classic dessert whenever you want, Thanksgiving and beyond. Let's go inside and meet the owner. How are you?
Hi, Jessica. I'm great. Thank you.
Oh, I love your shop. It's so pretty. It's exactly where you'd want to come and eat pie. What was your inspiration for, before you even got to the pie part of things, your inspiration for what you wanted it to look like?
I wanted people to feel like they were in my kitchen, like someplace they want to sit and have a cup of coffee and pie.
How did you transition into pies?
It was not a straight path.
Okay.
I'm not a baker. I wasn't a baker by trade,
Really?
Of course. I was a designer before we had kids, and then there was travel involved. I worked in an industry where I was away from home a lot, and so I just didn't want to do that anymore. I just started figuring out what I wanted to do, and I was more of an entrepreneur, and I decided I wanted to open a bakery in Claremont because we had lived in Claremont originally, and I just love it. But I was planning on opening a cupcake bakery originally. So the week that we were about to lease a space in Claremont to open a cupcake shop, somebody else did. And so there goes that.
I beat you to it, okay.
So I called up one of my best friends who lives out here, and she had just been to a sandwich shop in LA and said, I just have a tiny pie. Maybe you should think about pies. My mind just started going in that direction. And then I climbed in the car the next day, and on NPR, there was a segment where the guest said that pie will be the new cupcake. And I was like, that's
It's a sign.
I never thought about anything else. So I started asking my friends, why don't you take pie more often? Why don't you eat pie more often? And the answers were, the slices are messy, nobody makes a good pie, and I don't know how. It doesn't have the same visual appeal, portion control. And so I was like, that's it. I'm gonna solve pie's
All
problem.
those problems, you solved pies.
That's it.
Do they all come in these kind of petite sizes then?
Every flavor we do, we make it in anything.
I mean,
from
these are really cute and tiny.
Yeah, so we do a mini, a jelly jar size,
Yeah.
and then we can make it in a 10-inch size too. This is I wanted people to eat pie every day, and I really think pie deserves a seat at the table all the time.
And Thanksgiving is your Super Bowl,
It is our
right? I would imagine.
It is our
I mean,
Super
this
Bowl.
is like
Super Bowl, Black Friday, everything
all
tied
of it
into one. Yeah.
Look at these amazing flavors.
So what would you like to try?
Oh my gosh. Okay, because it's the season of pumpkin.
Yes.
Should I?
Take it.
I
You can-
kind of want to cut into it just to
Yeah.
show what the middle looks like. I love this idea. This is genius.
Right? Yeah. You can eat it right out of your hand too.
And I'm a pumpkin pie lover. And this is really good. It's not too sweet. This one, it looks like it has a chocolate chip cookie on top.
It does have a chocolate chip cookie on top. When it's warm, this one I only recommend eating it warm. It's chocolate chip chess, and it's like a gooey chocolate chip cookie.
Oh my
when
God.
It's warm. So with ice cream, it's
Wow.
outstanding. This is our butter pecan pie. And so, again, it's a culmination of all the years of Thanksgivings where I just
love pecan.
love
Maybe
it.
I'll try the baby.
Go for it.
What is
Yeah.
it? What do you call the baby?
Oh, a mini.
Just a mini.
Those are
Okay.
minis, jelly jar pies, and then hand pies and whole pies.
And this is like a 2-biter. Maybe a 1-bite for some.
Right. It depends on the size of your mouth, I guess.
Yeah, I love pecan pie. But for me, because it's usually pretty sweet, and I think this is like the perfect 2-biter.
And then this key lime.
Okay, I'm a Floridian.
So I need to know your opinion on that because
I have to always try a key lime. This is so good. This would fly off the shelves in Florida just like it would in California. I mean, this is a legit key lime pie. I know you do some savory pies too.
we have this time of year chicken pot pie, turkey
Yeah.
stuffing with gravy, and then we do a spicy potato hand pie. We also do sweet hand pies, so that's what that is, which I love.
Chicken pot pie time. I'm a huge chicken pot pie lover.
So today we'll do a double crust pie.
Okay.
So you'll see.
I'll see how
we
the
do it.
expert
Yeah.
does it.
We have some melted butter.
Okay.
And we'll be adding diced onion, and it's just about a half cup, maybe a little bit more. And I like to put this in first, just to let it kind of infuse the butter
Yeah.
for just a quick, minute before I throw anything else in. So in goes my celery and my carrots. And I'm going to put a little bit of salt in here just to speed up the process and get these to tender sooner. It only takes about 4 or 5 minutes for these
Okay.
to get tender. So I'm also going to add some fresh ground pepper.
Okay, poultry seasoning, a little dash of that.
Then I'm going to sprinkle the flour over the top. So now I'm just going to let this cook for a couple of minutes while the flour cooks a little bit and it coats the veggies. Now we'll start adding our liquids. I'm going to start with the broth because the pan is pretty hot and I don't want to throw something else in that's going to scorch. I have a little bit of white wine, 3/4 cup of milk, and now I'm going to switch to my whisk. I want to break up
Flour.
lumps of flour.
Yes, and that'll thicken things up.
Take my teaspoon measure and add in some Dijon, chicken concentrate, about a teaspoon of each. Sometimes on the concentrate, I'll go a little bit more if the chicken isn't super flavorful. Just like to let that simmer for just a minute. Now I'm going to add our peas and then chicken. I keep more chicken on hand than we need because I might change my mind about how much I want to put in.
Right.
I'm just going to stir until this looks about the way I like it to. And then I love fresh herbs at the end. So we have thyme and parsley. And what do you think, more chicken or is this the right?
I'm more like that.
Frothy. Yes. Okay, good. So I'm going to pour this into a dish and let it cool quickly, and then we'll look at our pie shell and talk through how that comes together.
We're chilling our filling, and then in the meantime, you're gonna show us a few tricks with your pastry dough.
Shell is ready to go. This is a trick that I love, especially because a lot of people aren't good at crimping. And
I've
just
never
gonna
seen this with the scissors.
create a little relief
Look
cut
at
all the
that.
way around. We are also going to use a different type of pastry for the top of the pie. We use a traditional type of crust for the bottom, and then we use something that it's almost a laminated dough. I know these are, our little girls grew up baking with me, and so something like this is so fun, decorative. I love crust cookie cutters.
Are all these beautiful designs that people will make on the top crust? Oh, there it is.
It takes more like 10 minutes
Okay.
if you put it on the counter, maybe even 15. You want it cool enough to not melt the butter in the pie as you're pouring it in.
The filling
color.
looks perfect.
That's so pretty. So now we put our pastry top, and this is the stretchy dough that I love so much. Our little shapes. I'm going to use those to kind of glue the two pieces of dough, types of dough together. It kind of keeps this from shrinking because it's a stretchy dough and it'll shrink. Oh, we have an acorn we could put in the middle. Wouldn't that be cute? So
And
now,
look how much pride you would have if you made that.
oh,
Like,
I know. I'm going to brush it with some egg wash, and this will go in the oven at about 400 degrees. Because our filling is already made and we just want to get that crust brown, we just need a nice hot oven, brown the crust. Filling is done, and we want it to get hot enough to be good to eat, but the rest of it's done.
we're cutting into this work of art.
Yes, it did turn out beautifully.
It's beautiful.
I always feel a little bad cutting into the pie.
I mean, it's like the most comforting thing you could have. Danica, thank you so much. Happy Thanksgiving.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much. So much fun.
Coming up, the most delicious sides for your Thanksgiving table.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a brioche stuffing with mushrooms and a butternut squash basted in butter and maple syrup. That's coming up. The mushroom is having a moment, so let's give it the starring role in our stuffing this year. Time to make some stuffing. This is a stuffing that I have not made before, and usually, I know growing up, my mom always made stuffing with sausage, and I think she would put apple and pecans or something. And I do a variation of that today, and I think I just switch it up every year. I don't know that I stick to the same thing. This is a beautiful loaf of brioche, which is soft and buttery and just lovely. So it's going to be a assorted beautiful mushrooms like shiitakes, and I just picked up whatever pretty mushrooms I could find at the grocery store. I'm gonna saute those in some butter and garlic. And then this is a great thing for if you have any vegetarians maybe coming to your Thanksgiving, a mushroom stuffing. First things first, you need to toast up your bread, right? You need kind of stale bread. I'm gonna cut some slices and then into chunks. And I'm not putting anything on the bread, I'm just toasting it up dry. Okay, put this in a 350-degree oven. Let it get all nice and dried out and lightly toasted. You don't want things to burn. So the bread only took 5 minutes and it got nice and toasted and dried out, but not too brown. So that's done. And then now all the flavors that are gonna make this a mushroom stuffing that'll be really delicious. So I got as many beautiful, different kind of mushrooms as I could. Of course, you've got baby bellas, which are easy to find. So are shiitakes. These are oyster mushrooms. There are some trumpet mushrooms. So just a collection, a variety of mushrooms for different texture and flavor. And you don't get these wet. If you waterlog your mushrooms, they will not brown and get nice. They will just steam and be mushy. So what you do to clean them, and they're pretty clean, you just take a dry towel and that's it. You just wipe off any dirt you see. Now to the other things we're going to put in our stuffing. Celery is a classic thing. I've got some shallot, some garlic, and I'll cut up a couple of stalks of celery. I like leaves and everything. Some garlic, I've got about 4 cloves, and I'm just gonna give them a rough chop. And then our shallot, maybe 1 or 2, it depends. And I like shallot. I think shallot is a little gentler than a white onion or a yellow onion. This is the building block of flavor. And then cut up our mushrooms. So our look at these beautiful oyster mushrooms. I'm just gonna do a big chop. And shiitakes, if they're small, just cut them in half. I'm just gonna cut them in half. You can keep the stems on unless it's a really woody, rough stem, then you can get rid of it. But otherwise, totally fine with stems being on. I'm gonna also do some baby bellas and just slice those. Bread is on standby. I've got a pan heating up. I want a good amount of butter. And a little hit of olive oil, just so the butter doesn't burn. But we want that to get nice and warm and bubbly. And then we'll add the mushrooms. So the mushrooms cook separately from the celery and the onion, because the celery and onion, again, they have a lot of water and it could just make things watery. So I'm gonna do the mushrooms solo. Mushrooms going in. You don't want to crowd the pan too much. Get it in a flat layer there. So let the mushrooms sit for a minute and then they start to get brown on the bottom. I have not salted them yet because when you salt them early, you also release water, which means they wouldn't brown as easily. So I'm gonna wait to salt them until the end. So our mushrooms got nice and brown and you can see how much they shrunk down. So to our mushrooms now, I'm gonna hit them up with a sprinkle of salt and some freshly cracked pepper. And our mushrooms are done. Now our celery and onion. So I have a big bowl where I'm gonna mix our stuffing and I'm gonna just put those into the bowl. You could go either or. I'm gonna just do a little olive oil and then this you can add a little salt, season every layer, and you just want to cook this until it's soft, not browned necessarily. While that's cooking, I'm going to put our bread into the big bowl. And just to speed it along, I'm going to add chicken stock, but if you want to keep it vegetarian, veggie stock would be great. And this will just help make sure those veggies get cooked through, just a few splashes. While that cooks, I want to look at what herbs we're gonna put into our stuffing. This was the poultry pack that you can get this time of year. So it's marjoram, it is rosemary, and some thyme. And just a handful of each. Done. I'll put that into our bowl. And that's done too. As long as they're softened, I'm gonna put this in. A little more butter, just to add to our stuffing. So in our big bowl, so we've got our bread, our veggies, mushrooms, 2 cups of chicken stock and 2 eggs. I'm gonna whisk into this cup with our stock, and then you're gonna pour it in over your bread mixture. And this is where the bread just drinks it all up. That's why I've got the big bowl. So you're gonna stir that around, just let it soak in. And at first you might be thinking, is it too much liquid? It will soak it up, and I'm also gonna add that little bit of butter on top, like a tablespoon or two extra. I've got baking dish, buttered. I know, but it's Thanksgiving. Just a little bit so it doesn't stick. Stuffing going in, and then you just kind of smush, for lack of a better word, and now we bake it. Our stuffing is done. It is bubbly. Look at that. And it makes the house smell so good. And I love that texturally, it's a little crunchy on the outside and creamy on the inside. Perfect with your turkey.
Coming up, Hassleback potatoes have been all the rage, but what about Hassleback butternut squash? That's coming up next.
It's a classic fall veggie. Here's how to elevate your butternut squash for your Thanksgiving table. It's Thanksgiving time, and that means you're starting to think about some of the things you want to put on your Thanksgiving menu. And this year, I always like to add a few new things. The butternut squash, not new to Thanksgiving, but I think the way we're going to prepare this today is a new fun approach to the classic butternut squash. So I'm going to Hassleback it like you would a potato, which I've done before. And by cutting it in these really thin kind of pieces, it gets crispy and soft, and I think it could be an interesting way to serve squash this Thanksgiving. So the first thing you got to do, it's a little intimidating sometimes to cut into a big squash like this, but the first thing is peeling it. So you want to get a nice sharp peeler. We're going to, with a sharp knife, the bigger the knife, maybe the better. I'm going to cut off the end. I'm going to find the middle, okay? And you kind of just start, it's noisy, but this is how I like to just, okay, there you go. Ta-da! Got through our butternut squash. Wanna scoop out the seeds. This is how you get the Hassleback effect. So you've probably seen it in potatoes. You take, I'm gonna use 2 wooden spoons. Not round ones, but these happen to have flat edges. I'm gonna put it on the flat side. These spoons are to keep your knife from going all the way through. It's like a safeguard. So in essence, you want to make as thin of slices as you can, and you just go down your squash, making almost like an accordion effect. But these spoons keep it from going all the way down. So what happens when this bakes and gets soft is all of that kind of opens up, and you can get flavor in between all of these little pieces. Sometimes they get a little crispy, little time consuming, but once you get on a roll, you kind of get into a rhythm. Okay, did it. Whew. Now one more to go. Our Hassleback squash, done. Okay, now melted butter, I have unsalted, and some really good maple syrup, real maple syrup. I'm gonna pour some nice glugs of that, and I'm gonna baste it. And you wanna get in there, get in between all those cuts. And I think I wanna baste throughout the cooking a couple of times. And then, what maybe I should have done before, but I was just too excited. I wanna stick a few slices of garlic, some sage, kind of in between the cuts. Cut some very thin slivers of garlic. The last thing before I pop it in the oven is I have these sage leaves. And I'm gonna just dip them in this butter and place, this is the butter maple syrup, and place them around and see how these brown up. I kind of envision them getting crispy, and then I'll just kind of crisp them up and crinkle them over the top. One more thing I wanna add, some fresh thyme that I happen to have on hand. Sprinkle that on top. Some salt, kosher salt on top. And again, I plan on basting throughout. Okay, in the oven. Our squash has been in the oven about an hour, maybe a little bit more. You just want it to be tender all the way through. And the Hassleback effect allows you to get these little pieces that get kind of charred and really yummy. So I've got a platter, and I'll show you how I would serve it up. It's like an accordion. To that, I've got some toasted pecans, and I just put them in a dry pan and brown them because that really brings out the flavor of your pecan. We also have our sage leaves that got crisped up, but I pulled them out early because they will burn, so you want to check on that. And then I've got some goat cheese. And you just want to crumble it on top. To that are chopped up pecans because you want the creamy, you want the crunch, and our sage leaves. Just gonna kind of break those on top, and then maybe just to make it look pretty, got a little bit of thyme, just kind of tuck those in there. And there you go, your butternut squash is ready for Thanksgiving. For all the recipes we featured today, you can follow us on Instagram at KTLA California Cooking.
That does it for us. Thank you. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Happy Thanksgiving!
Happy Thanksgiving!
Good job, Levi.
It's the hardest job in the world, looking straight into the world's brightest light.
And look happy.
And then get excited when Mommy says brioche stuffing with mushrooms.
Yeah. What does Daddy say about Mommy's job?
He says, do you even work, or is this just like a party?